Welcome, students. So, in this session, we are going to discuss a few things about ICT. So, I got a lot of questions from students that ask a lot of questions regarding ICT. Is that the right career option to pursue when doing their A levels, or do they need to consult someone? Can they do it privately? Can they uh, do it from school? Does the school even have the facilities? There are so many questions that were put forward by a lot of my students, especially from the students who have completed their O levels. So what I thought was, I just thought of just discussing about ICT. Now, when you think about ICT, do you think of something like this? That's just a mind map. So do you look at it like, oh my goodness, there are so many modules in ICT and there's so much of theory. Could it be so complicated? Uh, because there's so many components that need. There's software engineering, there is database management, there are number systems, there is project management, there is so many things. There's like gates, algebra, Boolean algebra. So there's so many things that come into your scope, right? So we need to dissect it. We don't need to look at the whole thing and see, oh my goodness, it's so complicated. In fact, it is not this complicated. Okay, most teachers, I believe, make it sound a bit scary, but really it's not that scary. Actually, it looks kind of like this. I would show you. Wait, right. It looks kind of like that. So you see, ICT is not complicated as people make it out to be. So let's say you have done your O levels, right? But you have not selected ICT for your O levels, so you have done all the everything else. But in A levels, you have decided to do ICT. Don't worry. Even in A levels, they take you from the very basics, right? They the syllabus is constructed in such a way, so in year 12 and 13 they take it from the very basic, right? They don't continue where grade 11 students left off. Okay, so in my videos I'll be only doing ICT for the English medium only. Okay, so I will not be doing any other mediums. I'll be only doing in the English medium, the ICT and other subjects. So I have written a couple of things down that have been frequently asked by my students, especially those who are doing the O-level syllabus. So why choose IT? So why do you think students choose IT? Now I have chosen it because I kind of grew up with it, right? Ever since I think I was only 12 years old when I was introduced to ICT, and this was probably about maybe 30 years ago, right? Okay, maybe not 30 years, maybe definitely more than 25 years ago, right? So I was introduced at just 12 years to a computer. It was ZX Spectrum and Sinclair computers. So those computers did not run even DOS. They had a separate operating system, right? And they had GW Basic. So you do all the programming with GW Basic. However, that's where I started the passion for it, of learning IT, of learning technical things. So to me, because of that passion that I had, it was easy to grasp things, right? So I have been doing it for many, many, many decades, right? So why would you choose ICT? Main reason you choose ICT is not because your parents pushed you into it. Okay, You choose ICT because you love the subject. You can, like, start, plugging components. You can take your, hardware. You can buy yourself a computer, or buy, the parts of the computer, and then start, plugging them together. You can actually, go and, like, expand your computer. Let's say, you only got a computer with one hard drive, right? The thing is, you can, like, go buy yourself another hard drive and then open up the computer and then, plug it in, find that SATA cable and then, plug it in. You got an extra, 500 GB or 1 TB added. So that's, when you do that and you see the accomplishment, you see your product working, you get a joy from it, right? So that's the, one of the main reasons. When you write a program, you write a program to do something, to solve a problem. Guess what? And the problem gets solved. There's an accomplishment. There's a joy that comes with it, right? Let's say, somebody's looking for a solution to their problem and you provide that solution. It's a joy to see that person, having finally a peace of mind because of your solution, right? So the main reason is why you choose ICT is because you have passionate. Of course, yes, there are perks, you get a lot of, you get a big salary and all that. But the main reason you should choose ICT is not because of that, it's because of the passion you have to, to solve problems. Okay. So when we take the O-level syllabus versus the A-level syllabus, second item, right? You notice I started with 0 because in technology, generally things start, the arrays start with 0. So in programming, it starts. So here, I just put 0 to start with. So if you take, item number 1, okay, O-level syllabus, basically A-level and O-level, there is not too much of a difference. They cover the same thing that they covered in O-level, but they would add a bit more context, right? And when it comes to the professional career path, now, although you would have those particular subjects when you go into the professional line, everything that you learned is only foundational. Okay, it's like a house. Think of it like a house. You don't live on top of a foundation, do you? I don't, right? I build a house on top of a foundation and I live in a house. Okay, I don't live on top of the foundation directly, right? I build a house on top of the foundation and then I live in a house. The same with O level and A level. When it comes to ICT, you have a foundation. On that foundation, you build software, you build your career, right? You build, your project management skills, your business analytical skills, right? Your data ingestion skills. If you want to, like, build, AI systems, you build on top of these foundations. Okay. If you're, doing graphics, graphic engineering, if you're doing even 3D design, modeling, it's all built on top of the O level and A level subjects that you are done. Okay, so very rarely to never will you directly use in your professional career, would you directly use anything that you have learned in O level and A level. Like, for example, binary or logic gates, you will definitely not use those directly in your career, but you would apply the principles and you would apply things built on top of those logic gates, right? So you definitely should have a foundation, okay, just like a house foundation. Otherwise, the house will simply collapse, right? When you're doing a professional career in the future, it's built on top of these O level and A level ICT subjects, okay? I will eventually get to that, but this is only just an introduction that I'm doing. So it's only reasonable that I skip all the actual subject matter and just go down to only why you would actually use ICT and what are the benefits. Okay, so when it comes to ICT, okay, you have technology for life, right? So technology for life basically means you are completely immersed in technology. So everything that you do revolves around technology, right? Including you would get your smartphone also, but you would just not use your smartphone just to make calls or browse the web or get on Facebook and Instagram. Not really, yeah, right? When you get educated in ICT, you would do a little more, right? You would start to use it constructively, yeah, right? Maybe you might use your phone to create a YouTube viral video that will basically help people, right? Then you might create uh, bits and pieces of videos, append them together using some tool like CapCut, put it on Instagram or TikTok, and probably make some money out of it, right? There's a good chance of making money out of that. So if you do it professionally and use things like Canva, right, as the front page, or Canva AI, which is the paid version, so you can actually use something like that and build a tool that, or rather build the media that generates some valuable input. Okay, not just hooking on, just getting on top of Facebook and Instagram, right? So it's constructive technologies for life, right? So everything that, even if you like pair your phone with a good washing machine, like let's say an LG or Avan's washing machine with Bluetooth, right? You need to know how to use it. You want to install Pick Me and Uber to, like you need to know how to use that, right? Even when you do, let's say you're in A level and you want to create, let's say, a Bluetooth module connected to a light using Arduino and Bluetooth, right? That's what I'm talking about. You need to know the basics. Okay, so that's what I mean by technology for life. You, until you grow old, the technology will be surrounding you. Okay. So is it difficult? There are students who ask, is it difficult? I would say absolutely not, if you are passionate about ICT. If you like to learn, or like to engage with, it's 100% hands-on. Okay, there is no such thing as you read a book and memorize it, right, and then you go and pass the exam. I can guarantee you, if you memorize ICT subjects, you will definitely go and you will fail. You will fail all the subjects, right? Because it's not something that you memorize. It's something that you work out. It's like simple basic algebra, basic maths, right? Or basic common sense, like creating databases and tables, right? So for that, when you consider the difficulty level, I would suggest it is based on how much you like it. So if you like to learn about these new technologies and new things, how they work, what's the foundation, how is this, let's say, example, how is this house standing upright, and then you understand, oh yeah, they have a foundation below, right? And the foundation is 5 feet deep or 4 feet deep. So and it's built out of rocks and concrete, and they use cement to mix it, and they put these giant rocks, and then they have these iron bars that go, one, it's like that. Same with ICT foundation. Okay, so difficulty level, I would say, is very, very simple. uh, when we talk about, let's say, okay, getting discouraged, the only time I would get discouraged is maybe because of the price of certain items, and if it's a bit unreasonable, or like, yeah, if it's like, too expensive to purchase, then yeah, that's the only disadvantage when it comes to technologies. Especially, let's say you want to buy a laptop that is, having 32 GB of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD hard drive, and it has a 2K monitor, LED screen. Yeah, it's definitely gonna, cost you a bit more. Okay. Other than that, I would I wouldn't get discouraged, especially even if, like, let's say your teachers come and say, hey, don't, learn ICT because it might be very difficult for you. The only reason where some teachers might say that is because it's a fear of change, right? So if you're afraid to change and embrace something, then you would obviously, resist that change, right? So that's the only that's the only thing I would see as being one of those points where, you would get discouraged. But that's why I am here to, like, show you why you should not get discouraged at all, right? So I will basically, help you get through all your ICT subjects, because I have like more than 25 years experience in the ICT world since I was just, 12 years old. So it's very easy. It's very easy to get an A plus. Okay. Uh, Study time. Okay, now study time. Okay, let's take next topic. Study time. Yes, definitely. You need to study. You need to put some effort into it. However, you don't need to, like, look at a book, for example. You don't need to, like, open a book and, like, try to, memorize, memorize, read, and then, memorize, more stuff. You don't need to do that. However, you do need to do a bit of maths. So if you can, put in, let's say, just 1 hour a day only for ICT, doing things like, the basic algebra, like Boolean algebra, doing the numbers system, databases, designing things using flowcharts. It'll be very, very simple. And I will walk you through the whole process. Okay. So study time, when I was doing it, what I used to do is I used to break it up. Okay. I used to break ICT into, half an hour chunks. So I would get my students to do half an hour of, ICT, and another half an hour of science, biology, another half an hour of maths, and then come back again to ICT. When again, do a bit of maths, do a bit of biology, come back again to ICT. That way, you will break up the pattern of being bored, and you will never get bored. So you can, basically, do your homework like that for like, 4 or 5 hours, and you don't get bored, right? So that is study time, I would say. And you can also have playtime after doing that, or you can, break up your playtime. For example, you can have that particular thing for 2.5 hours, play for 1 or 2 hours, and again you go back again to that, half an hour, alternating subjects. So that's what I did, and basically it worked for me, because that way I don't get bored. Okay, so practical and theory in ICT, there is a lot of practical things. Okay, so theory would be, I would say, logic gates, but you can convert that into practical. For example, if you take, let's say, logic gates, right? If you take this logic gate, this is a 4-bit logic gate. Now, one person actually sat down and built a calculator using purely transistors. Now you can do that. It's really, really difficult because you need to put hundreds of transistors just to calculate if, two small numbers, not a big number, just two small numbers. And it's a 4-bit calculator. Okay. Right. So 4-bit calculators, you can only calculate up to 16. So beyond that, it can't calculate. So you can just imagine the complexity required to build this. Right. So you can imagine how many millions or hundreds of millions of transistors go into an Intel or AMD microprocessor. Okay, so that's that's how it is. Right. So when it comes to practical and theory, I would suggest you uh, do a little bit of practical also. So you should never do only theory, because if you try to do only the theory, then there is a good chance that information will not stick in your head. It is very important, do a bit of practical, get your hands dirty, start, building a couple of, tables in MySQL or Postgres, opening up Word, Excel, PowerPoint, creating a couple of presentations, okay, using the principles that are given, and you do that presentation to your family or your school. I recommend it you do it for your classmates. Okay, whether it is Excel, Word, or PowerPoint, do a presentation. It will also improve your communication skills and your presentation skills. Okay. Okay, so that's one of the most important things when it comes to a professional career, especially in ICT, because in ICT, I can guarantee you one thing that comes up every day is presentations. Okay, you have to do a presentation. Every day you will be asked, can you show us how you came up with this solution? What is the best procedure to build this piece of software? How do we achieve optimization for this particular solution? The solution that was maybe provided by one person might not work for the other person, or it might not be fully optimized. How would you reconcile it with a presentation? Right? So you can't get away from presentations. Right? So it's always good to have, a bottle of water when you're doing the presentation, because you need to drink it, because you're constantly, talking and talking and talking, and you're expressing yourself. So that is there. So you need to ask, questions. So here, when I'm doing the subject, just stop and ask me, and, just put a question, why or how do you optimize? Just don't be afraid to ask questions. That is how you will grow, by asking questions. Okay, I know we don't, as Sri Lankans, we don't have that natural ability to, present, to be animated, to ask, question, because you're afraid that you might get it wrong, or maybe the teacher might, say something, or, ridicule you, right? That sometimes do happen, but not with me. I don't do any of those funny stuff. I actually respect those people who, ask me questions. So student that ask me question, I actually respect them, and I really like when students ask question, because it tells me that they are also involved and they like to learn. Okay, so when you're learning, you will make mistakes. Okay, so even I make mistakes whenever we, do a solution. Sometimes, the solution might not be the best solution. Sometimes the solution would be a mediocre solution for today, but maybe in about a week we have a better idea, right? So we implement the mediocre solution 2 weeks later, and then we realize that very same evening after implementing it, hey, this is not that great. we should have used this method, which should be better, right? So we all make mistakes, right? So make mistakes, that's how you learn. Okay. And finally, when you're building your or rather when you're answering some of these questions that are coming in the papers, so that's when we do some mock papers, mock exams, or past papers from 2022, 21, 23, right? When we do those mock exams, what I would also like you to create some of your own questions, right? So how, let's say, you're building, a logic gate, okay, to do, a mathematical, equation, rather like a Boolean equation, right? You're building the gates. Create your own mathematical equation in there and your expressions using Boolean algebra, and then create your own logic gates. Okay. So that is what I would, recommend when you're actually, doing these ICT courses, right? It is not difficult. It requires a passion for you to learn. Okay. So I'll give you another example. Now here, by the way, this is a microchip. it's it's a really, really big microchip because it's 200 nanometers, which means it's a really old one, like maybe 20 years ago. Now such microchips are still available, and that's one of the junction gates. Now these gates, basically you will need to remember some of these symbols. What are those symbols? Those are basically transistor gates. Gates basically means electricity. They flow through a gate. That's what makes a microprocessor. Without these gates, even a transistor will not work. Even a transistor radio will not work. Nothing will work actually, right? So they are basically built using like the silicon, germanium, gallium, arsenic, right? So because those they have semiconductor properties. Okay. So when you create when you start learning, you start to create these things, these particular gates, and you will get familiar with that. So you have to put in your time and effort. Okay. So during our time, when you start doing these practically, I know it's going to take some effort from both you and me, right? So we just stick in, and we can definitely ace your exams. So don't I know you want to maybe pass, you might at the end, at the end of the year, when you have just 2 months or 3 months remaining, you might ask me, sir, do you know whether you can teach me quickly, right? So uh, that's going to be really hard, right? So that's why you have a whole year, or you have 2 whole years for A levels to to get and to become an expert in ICT, right? So I'll leave you with my point. You can always message me. You can send me a text message, or you can just message me in the comment, right? And uh, keep an eye out. Stay tuned, because I'll be starting my the classes very soon. Okay, I'll see you around.